So here we have one of the most experienced panel discussing one of the most interesting topic. The climate is right for rail PPPs. We have been hearing social sector PPPs, health PPPs, and now moving on to one of the most versatile and climate friendly mode of transportation, the railways. And to discuss that, we have some of the most experienced minds here with us. And before I move on to them, let me start by introducing myself. I am Dr. Naresh Bana, and I am one of the co-founder and steering committee member, in addition to being the convener of rail chapter of WAPP. I have built the Kashmir rail project in one of the most challenging circumstances in India, and with me I have Mr. Abhay Mishra sitting on my extreme left. He is a civil engineer by qualification. He has worked with Indian Railways for 23 years, and overall he has more than 40 years experience. As subsequent to his railway stint, he has been CEO of 2 metros, that includes Delhi Airport Metro and Mumbai Metro, both being PPP projects. In road sector, as CEO, he has been responsible for 11 PPP projects, having more than 10,000 kilometers cumulative length. Currently, he is chairman of Board of Directors of Nacala Logistics and heading 4 concessions in Mozambique and Malawi. He is the director of South African Railway Association, and he was also awarded CEO of the Year by the World HR Congress. Then we have Mr. Mohamed Almahruqi sitting on my left. He is the deputy CEO of Oman and Etihad Rail, the right person to be talking about railway in this place. We couldn't have had a better and more experienced person here. He is an experienced project manager with a demonstrated history of working in the transportation, trucking, railroad industry, skilled in gas, petroleum, energy industry and power plants. He has a strong program and project management skills with a Masters of Business Administration in Business and Management General from University of Strathclyde. And then we have Mr. Philip Marquis. And Philip Marquis, sorry for pronouncing your name incorrectly before. So, yeah. So Philip is a graduate of the University of Waterloo, Ontario, with a honors BSc. He holds a master's degree in business administration from Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh and studied transportation geography at York University in Toronto. Philip is currently leading the Marquis Rail Group, a boutique consultancy specializing in rail development and optimization. Philip has over 40 years of railway experience with Canadian National Railway, Illinois Central Railroad, ACOM and Oman Rail. He has a strong understanding of the rail systems throughout North America and the Middle East, having worked in Canada, the US, the United Arab Emirates and the Sultanate of Oman. He is a member of many professional associations. So with that, let's talk about the climate. Today, while we are talking about COP28, there are many things, many challenges which various type of climates are facing. And we are not talking about geopolitical climate, we are talking about the climate as climate, right? So the global warming and other issues which are causing problems. Railways, which as such has been a most climate friendly infrastructure, has again embarked on evolution into further climate friendly, having identified green hydrogen as one of the fuel for powering locomotives or powering the traction systems. And that is where we are going to discuss here as to how the green hydrogen could be integrated into the fueling of or powering of the railways in PPP format. My first question is to Mr. Mishra. What is the evolving perspective you see on future of hydrogen powered railway?
Good evening, everyone. This being the last session, so I hope the interest will continue. Now, regarding this hydrogen, now this is the latest baby on that for the traction of the railways. The railways started with the steam traction, and that continues for quite some time. And as I remember, even in India, they continued up to as late as 1995. We were having the steam traction. While the next one came the diesel traction, which started in 1925, but got settled by 1960. Most of the railways, they started with the diesel traction, and that continues. And then electrification, of course, electric engine also came simultaneously, and that's a more climate friendly, more so they are quite in thing. But the hydrogen as an energy for traction, first thing is about the technology part of it, but more or less as we see the technology is settling down. I'm not talking about the cost part of it, but number of railways are coming up for starting in the hydrogen run train. Alstom has already started few trains in Germany. In Germany, they have already started, and the couple of countries, they are in a process of starting a passenger train initially for that. Even in India, they are thinking of starting about a 4,000 horsepower locomotive. They are thinking about starting with the hydrogen. That's a very good news. But all said and done, if we see how in the railways they will settle down, it is going to be a long journey. As today we see about the total locomotives in the world, there are more than 100,000 locomotives they are there. I mean, to change over to the this particular scenario, I mean, it will be about a 50-year journey, I think not less than that. And more so, first of all, the settling down of the locomotive, that which type of locomotive, what type of fuel cells, all those things answered have to be taken. Initially, in the evolving process, the passenger train will be first to come, and then the goods train will come up, and this is the journey will start. And I'm sure this is the future of the railways, and this is what we will take it forward.
That's great. And on the Alstom's journey or the trials of the green hydrogen powered locomotives in Europe, they have given a little pause there, and they are evaluating whether the battery will still be on, or I mean there is little challenge there. So coming to Mr. Marquis, what are the challenges of transforming from diesel operated railway engines to hydrogen energy powered engines as you see them?
Okay, I think the first challenge would be changing the mindset.
Yeah.
Would be changing the mindset. As you mentioned, it took almost a century to change from the steam to diesel proven engines. On top of that, I think the main challenges are firstly the initial cost, and that will be the capex on the infrastructure. You will need a transmission system to transfer the hydrogen, whether it is a pipeline or another system. Also, you cannot use the current or the existing fueling stations, and that's why you will need a special fueling stations, specially designed, customized for the hydrogen, and you will need it in the entire network. Also, there is a cost associated with the trains themselves. The diesel engine cannot be simply run by hydrogen. It has to be either upgraded, replaced, which is a bit costly, and otherwise the whole locomotive have to be replaced, which is even more costlier. That's a challenge on the cost. I think another challenge will be the performance of the hydrogen itself. If you run the same volume of hydrogen and diesel, I think diesel will give you more range than the hydrogen, and therefore you will need more fueling station, or you need maybe bigger tanks, and that will be on the expense of taking something else on the railway. There are some other aspects or challenges on the operation side. One element could be the cost of the hydrogen compared to the cost of the diesel. We know diesel is cheaper, especially if the hydrogen is green. It's more expensive because most of the hydrogen, or some of the hydrogen, is produced using fossil fuel, and so there is a CO2 emission associated with the production of this hydrogen. Another element is the maintenance. There could be a change in the maintenance strategies of the entire railway, because you change from one source of energy to something else, to another technology. Another challenge I can see is the availability of the skilled workforce. I think lots of work has to be done to train and to get the right manpower in order to start, to run, and to maintain such systems.
Thank you. Now, this is very interesting that you have identified and flagged the first and foremost the change of mindset, which is certainly going to be not only important for the decision makers, but the entire ecosystem, all the users. And with that, may I ask Mr. Philip to throw light on that what is driving and what's going to drive this change globally, government or the actual results of climate change? How do you see it?
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. There's three aspects to this. There has to be a political will, and I think that's been established with COP28 as we're seeing the development coming along. The demand for the reduction in greenhouse gases. Rail already leads the transportation sector in the ability to move people and goods in the most environmentally friendly manner. But it's got to go further. And the political way, or the political will, is established now. And I think governments are seeing that in their ESG policy, or sorry, the railways are seeing that in their ESG policies. But climate change itself is starting to drive a lot of this as well, and that's an immediate. Railways have to look at this in two different ways. When we look at the conversion to hydrogen or alternative energy sources, it's a long-term investment. The life cycles of railway equipment is huge compared to other industries. We're looking at locomotives that they're 60 years old and they're still operating out there. How do we meet that? in the United States, they had their tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, and they're having difficulty attaining tier 4. They're doing it, but to get to those levels. So that's driving the industry today. The third part of it that the railways have to address is the immediate effect of climate change as it's affecting their railway operations. And that's in the area of mitigation of flooding. We're seeing the 100-year storm is now happening every 2 years. We're seeing coastal areas being scoured. We're seeing permafrost, where the rail has been laid on permafrost, which is on ice effectively underneath. The permafrost is melting, turning the area into soft, swampy areas that the railways are trying to operate in northern parts of Canada. So these are all being addressed, or have to be addressed in kind. And as we go forward today, I think we'll talk about that more.
Great. Now, all of you have flagged the cost, rather the high cost associated with production of green hydrogen itself, and then the changeover or the modification or the evolution of the entire ecosystem of the railways. Now, all this replacement or the changeover depends on a critical exercise which we will do, which we keep doing for any such change, is the benefit cost ratio of the entire ecosystem with hydrogen, green hydrogen as a fuel. While it may be viable where electrification of tracks is less or not fully done, it may lose out to battery operated or electric traction in some places. So with that benefit cost ratio analysis in the background, I request Mr. Mishra to tell me what is your view on having a hydrogen fueled locomotive vis-a-vis using green hydrogen to generate electricity to feed the electrified overhead traction. I mean, whether you should have locomotive itself fueled by the green hydrogen, or the electricity generated somewhere else using green hydrogen that is feeding the traction system of railways with. Yeah.
You see, changing the existing electric traction with the hydrogen certainly does not make a sense, because this is already an environmental friendly thing, and already one has done a capital cost in the electrification of a line. So I mean, it's mixed. Now the question arises whether on the diesel traction one should go for an electric fraction or should go for a hydrogen powered locomotives. Now, first of all, question this, as he told, the cost of the locomotives, number one, the technology part of it. Another is the cost about, as my fellow panelist has talked about, the challenges. They are huge challenges. They had, so far we don't have answers to it. Even for transportation of hydrogen itself has a cost. And production of hydrogen, if it is produced from a traditional means, also produce CO2. I mean, if you produce with a steam methane method, I mean, this is going to produce CO2. So that is certainly not a desirable methodology. If you do it by electrolysis, it itself consumes electricity. So now these questions, I'm sure they will be answered over a period of time, but immediately to say a very clear-cut line is difficult to say that. But more so, this is one of the possibility. They need to be explored on that, because on only electrified section, I'll prefer to get it electricity from a renewable source of energy. Why to go for hydrogen? I mean, that's already available. They are already proven. They are much cheaper also. Maybe from hydro plants, hydropower power plants we get. That's also very, very clean energy. Nuclear power plants is also a number of places which we are using it. So here, the question will be this: immediate replacement is from diesel traction to a hydrogen. That should be a kind of replacement to be thought about. But again, there, if the more challenges are there, this need to be thought about it, whether we produce electricity with, whether by hydrogen or by renewable sources and do electrifications, or by put in this hydrogen powered locomotives. That will depend upon how this technology get evolved and the cost of it. is something which is, I'm sure, in next 5 to 10 years' time, this will settle down and we will have clear answers to it. Thank you.
Now there is one more angle in it, that is the battery operated locomotives. So would you like to talk about that?
Yeah,
also?
battery operated locomotives here, interestingly, people already started doing it. In fact, with as a banker, some of the places they've started using this battery operated, because battery operated locomotive, the challenge comes is the range of it. So as a combination of it, people they are recharging the battery operated with the existing regenerative power and then using it as a combination of two. So these experiments are being on, but as a regular measure they are still not being used.
Now we have been talking about the benefit cost ratio, and Mr. Marquis, if I ask you that what are the considerations that impact the BCR, that is benefit cost ratio itself, to migrate to the hydrogen in railways operations, specifically if we talk about PPP format, what are the challenges or what do you see there?
I think first of all, the benefit cost ratio is a very important factor when discussing the migration of fuel to hydrogen, and it has many considerations when discussing this. The first thing, again, I'll go back to the cost. The cost drives most of everything. So what's the capital cost associated? The infrastructure cost, as I said before, the cost of distribution system, whether it is a pipeline or any other means, the cost of the refueling, again, refueling stations, and there is a cost as well of the hydrogen itself, whether the cost of the production of the hydrogen or the cost of buying the hydrogen. There are some elements that has to be considered, which maybe you don't see a monetary value on it, and I think these are the benefits that you can get from using the hydrogen. The first and the very obvious one is the reduction of the CO2 emission. By that you will be having a cleaner environment, a healthier people, supposedly. Other benefit I can see is technology advancement. I mean, participating in the production and using of the hydrogen at the beginning will give the country or the company the benefit of being the first users and the first implementers and developers of the technology. I think these are the main considerations.
Okay, and certainly you would like to, because it is cost intensive, so the PPP format would be a preferred mode of financing those?
Definitely. I think the PPP will help a lot, especially in raising the required capital, in sharing the risk between the public and the private sectors. It's a new technology, so I think the private sector will play a good role in providing the technology and also in providing the required maintenance for this technology. There are other aspects I can think of on a PPP, which is bringing the external or the international debt, for example, or funds. And I think the private sector will play a better role in that sense.
Great. Now, talking about the financing and talking about the PPP format and high capital costs, Philip, do you foresee any innovations in financing and insurance? Insurance is, you will appreciate, is an important part of entire thing, of green hydrogen based railways in PPP mode. You want me to repeat that?
No, I think we got it.
Okay.
the insurance of delivery of hydrogen, if, as my colleagues have pointed out, the distribution system has to be developed, whether it's done at a large plant and shipped by pipeline, whether it's done by electrolysis at point of use, all becomes very important. And this is where the PPP can become involved. If it's estimated right now that the Burlington Northern, at one of their fueling facilities in southwestern United States, it would cost $7.2 billion to build the electrolysis plant and operate it. Diesel fuel today is the largest procurement of a freight railway in North America, and would probably the energy for a railway system around the world, it would be the same thing. So hydrogen, the ensuring delivery of it is important. Europe has already started by developing the trunk line system within Europe. The rest of the world is not there yet. How they do it, hydrogen can be the battery where it's produced away from the point of use, or it can through electrolysis at that location. That's the room for PPPs. The private sector can come in and remove that risk. We do it today with power, PPP, power and water PPPs. Water is going to become very important in this. Moving the water to where it's going to be required. It's just millions and millions and millions of gallons of water that's required to produce the hydrogen as it comes in. So this is where I see the private sector coming in and assisting the governments in ensuring the transfer to hydrogen. It's going to take years. As we've discussed, it was 20 or 30 years to convert from steam to diesel/electricity. To convert to hydrogen, we've got locomotives that are 50, 60 years old that are out there. Third world countries in South Africa, or in Africa, you see locomotives that are being repurposed, they're running. In North America, there's small short line railways that are using these older locomotives. They're very good locomotives. They cannot afford to go out and start spending $5, $6, $7 million on a locomotive to replace it just because it's hydrogen, to bring the technology in. But the private sector can assist in this, in the development and the conversion of diesel-powered or electric-powered locomotives to
will be quite important. So the innovations which I mentioned, do you see any innovations with a way financial technologies paradigm is changing in the world? Would you like to throw any light? Would it get some integration into it and help PPPs deliver better?
Well, I think where the paradigm is going to come in is today we come in, we see the infrastructure. It's already difficult in a rail PPP because it's so long term. This is going to even add more challenge to that. The private sector can bring their experience in on the financing aspect, where the government or the public sector will not have that. When we look at financing railways in itself, we're looking 30, 40 years, maybe even 100 years on certain contracts and concessions. It's got to be worked in there. The risk has to be addressed in that financing. And I think it has to be private. The paradigm shift is a way the government isn't going to be the infrastructure owner. In many cases, I think it's going to draw to where the railway, it's going to be vertically integrated, where the railway is also in charge of the infrastructure and when going forward in their maintenance. It has to happen that way.
Great. So you mean to say that evolving paradigm, which is technology intensive, is going to certainly help out the
Yes.
delivery in PPP format for this evolution or change over to green hydrogen?
Yes.
With that, let me take you to the climate specific discussion. And Abhayji, can I ask you, has the climate change had any visible impact on railway operations? You have had more than 4 decades of experience. Can you quote some specific instances you may have come across where the role of climate is clearly visible and how you saw it?
If I say the impact, it's huge. The climate change, because the railway construction is linear, it is ribbon-like, so it is not limited to a geographically smaller location. So when it is across the boundaries, and climate does impact you at a different places, so the climate changes are impacting in the railways in a different manner. And I will tell you, for example, deforestation has been one of the reasons for the climate change.
Yeah.
And how the deforestation impact the railways. In the earlier times, the railways were designed, the railway bridges are designed for a particular type of forestation. So what is known as a time of conservation. When a water falls on a mountain, how much time does it take to come to a bridge? So that is some kind of assumptions are made. And urbanization in an area got urbanized, so some assumptions are made. And today all has changed. So when if a deforestation takes place on a mountain, when the water falls, the water comes very fast to the main, and it reduces now you require a bridge of a larger capacity. Yeah. So when I was working with the Indian Railways in central India, I mean, even for a small rain which earlier were not impacting, all of a sudden there was a kilometer of wash away happened. So now you can understand a kilometer of wash away, the bridges get washed away, how to restore that. So this becomes a huge problem in about the adequacy of the bridges. Now, which is a similar thing I'm observing in Africa when I'm heading this Nacala Logistics. It is spread across Mozambique and Malawi. In Malawi, every year now we are finding the bridges are getting washed away because the original waterway and the calculation of the waterway finding is highly inadequate. You will be surprised that a bridge which we are originally designed for about 30 meters, now you require about 80 to 90 meters of waterway for the same location when you do the hydrological study. So that is, nothing has changed, is only the environmental factor has changed. Apart from this, the cyclones which have started frequently, you must be hearing about so many cyclones are coming, which were not so common earlier. This year itself, we had in the southern Africa, we had a cyclone by name Freddy. I mean, it did such a devastation. In my own line, about 140 kilometers of track was impacted. Couple of bridges got washed away. So it is going to playing really havoc. And to protect that, I mean, we are making a rainproofing plan. So it requires a capital cost also. And it requires an introduction of new bridges at a number of places. So climate is having a huge toll on the railway lines. Yes, it is there.
Thank you. Thank you for showing us the real experience of your line. And since there are going to be many impacts, and many impacts would require many type of mitigation measures. So can PPP be an enabler in implementing such mitigation measures, Mr. Marquis? Could you say something about that?
I think it can, yes. If you think about the effect on the railway, it would be almost similar to the effects on roads. Apart from the roads can be easily maintained later on or diverted. But the railway, it's more difficult. But if I give example of, for example, flooding can, as he mentioned, can cause wash away of the track. It can cause landslides, which have a huge effect on the railway. It can obstruct the operation. It can even cause safety hazards on the passengers and on the workers on the railway. I think the PPP can play a part in the mitigations because most of the mitigations will involve infrastructure. And that infrastructure will not only help or protect the railway, it could protect cities, it could protect villages, it could protect other entities, and so there is a common interest as well in there. And again, the PPP, as I said, the private sector can bring good experience on this aspect, and therefore I strongly believe, yes, PPP can help a lot in the mitigations.
Okay. So PPPs usually take care of the deficient financing as well as deficient capacities and the risk-taking capability with the public authorities. And with those kind of requirements and the need for development of partnerships, the PPP among governmental, industry, academia, do you see any need for partnership or cross-fertilization of ideas? Philip, I'm addressing this question to you. To study potential climate impact on railways and work on mitigation measures?
Yes, I think all parties have to be involved in this. What we're seeing now with the bridge washouts, culverts not handling the water flow, with the PPPs, the private operators seeing more effect on their railway from climate change. What's happening is the development of new technologies has to come along that can assess the infrastructure and the impact that the climate change is having on the infrastructure. I'm working with a small company right now, a startup company, and they're working on the use of ground penetrating radar being affixed to locomotives so they can get real-time information on their substructure of their railway, so they can see what the effect of melting permafrost or water, excessive water underneath the right-of-way, what's happening. This wouldn't be possible without the use of AI, Internet of Things, and the development of algorithms. So we've done a test already on the Hudson's Bay Railway. We've tested 500 kilometers of railway, and the testing went perfect. Now the challenge to that company is how to assess the data. It's immense. It's beyond what they thought they would have. One test. And we want to put these out continuously. I think that's the way we have to start adjusting, because things are happening. The district engineer now can't say, oh, we had a derailment there because of this 5 years ago, we won't see it again for another 20 or 30 years. Or that. It's happening every year. It's happening over and over. So they've got to be assessing their infrastructure more and more. And this is where it's going to come in. Academia is going to give us the ability through artificial intelligence. Industry, the development of Internet of Things, the gamers are going to be part of all of this, bringing it all together. And in the end, it's going to be the railways, while the world will benefit, because we will be able to run longer, safer, more efficient trains.
That's great. So you brought in AI as well as IoT.
We're trying to.
And that is very interesting and gives that future perspective.
Yes.
So, as we are moving towards the end of the session, I would request if there are any questions from the audience, you may kindly come up to the podium and ask the question, because that's how the format of question answers is. Yeah, please come here. Yeah, you will have to come here. You may give your name and you switch on. There is a button there. If the red light is not on, then switch it on. Yeah.
Hi, hello there. So, Andy Thomas from WSP, consultant. Obviously, all PPPs are subject to public sector comparator. It's one of the biggest bases of the initial feasibility studies. We all recognize the importance of sustainability, but sometimes that's a sort of non-financial aspect that is really hard to figure into this public sector comparator, because you're kind of comparing an apple with a banana, if you understand what I'm saying. I just wondered if this is worth commenting on, as to, let's take for example the green hydrogen. I don't think there's anything in the public sector now that we could compare with as a apples for apples comparison. I wondered if that's worth a comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, gentlemen. Who would like to answer that? Mishra?
It's true.
You understand where I'm coming from?
No, I understand. If I correctly understood that, if something, this is a totally new technology, not even available with the government. So how does the private sector come to know about it?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back and put these on to be able to hear you.
Take this.
I'll have to
Take this. I can hear him otherwise. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So is it audible to you? Is it?
I can hear now.
Okay.
Now. Yeah.
So no, I will just repeat. I say, you mean to say something which is under development, even the government is developing. How does the private sector come to know about it? And it requires a huge capital investment part of it. So for the PPP to have it in hydrogen sector, I mean, it becomes a difficult take at this juncture because the risks are very, very high risk. So right now it is, if I put it, this is in a kind of an experimental stage. When we are just going to decide whether we are going to replace hydrogen with a locomotive, or we are going to do electrify and generate electricity with the hydrogen, or we take a locomotive, a hydrogen powered locomotive. So these are the questions which it takes time to settle on. If you remember, similarly, the solar power, think about it 5 years, 10 years back, it used to be very, very expensive. And at that time, the PPP projects at that time were having a different paradigm on the thought process. Correct. And today, if you take this, I mean, people are talking about the gigawatts about it. So that the same thing is going to happen, but it is in a good direction. We must work towards it, and then it will settle down. And because diesel is going to go, either it will be electrified or it will be hydrogen. That is what will the future.
Yes. I think the point. So I'm getting feedback. I think the point I'm trying to get across is that there's more to this than just financial. And when the business case is done, if you're going towards the hydrogen, then there needs to be some balance between the sustainability benefit versus the pure financial. This is what it would have cost the traditional way. This is what it's going to cost the PPP way.
Yeah. If I may
just add one point on that. I think we should not treat hydrogen in the traditional way. Governments have to maybe subsidize or even give benefits of using the hydrogen. And I think that could be an enabler for using the hydrogen.
I think that's the point.
In fact, that is already in place. That is already structured. When we at WAPP propagate PPPs, we not only look for or advocate value for money, we talk about value for people and value for future. Because that is where the sustainability will come. What you said, that costs have to be assigned to that. The value for people and value for future, because it is the fuel for the future. So I think you have brought in a very good point, and it will be certainly, as Mr. Mishra also put across and Mr. Marquis, that these things will be integrated in the future evolution and the project preparation.
I think, I think also what's happening is we start applying I forget the term that's being used, and the United Nations is starting to develop this, but the overall carbon imprint or cost of a product. So here's an interesting thing. Teck Industries in Canada runs coal trains from inland British Columbia to the coast to go on a ship to go to China or go to Japan to fire coal-fired steel plants to produce rail or to produce cars. They want to go more green because of these credits they're going to get. They're looking at putting hydrogen locomotives on their coal trains to run to Vancouver, to the port, to export, for that benefit to the climate. And that's what we have to look at. Whether it's the government doing it or whether it's the ESG policies of the corporations that are developing products, but that it will have to be looked at. It's a lot more widespread in your analysis and how you do it. So
it's going to be an integrated effort of all stakeholders.
Yeah, the hydrogen locomotive proof of concept is done. It works. The industry has developed it. We have it in passenger trains. The cost to electrify, I think, is very high. We can compare to that. But the transition to hydrogen is going to be the challenge, and there's got to be a cost put against that as well.
Any more questions, gentlemen? Yeah, please come.
Okay.
Yeah. You can continue speaking.
Hello. It's okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks so much. I'm Stefan Butt, consultant firm and designing project seek financement based in France. I would like to know about, you talk about help about, you start a project, you have 500 kilometers, you have, your team thinks that they have enough of data, and then they move to the next step. And they realized that they need more data, and the data they had was not able to predict for a future event. I want to know, if you don't have enough data, how in PPP projects, how do you manage, how risk do you take in order to be defined like a PPP? Because especially without did you take the risks of demand, availability, or the feasibility? Because if the public sector take a lot of risk, that probably is not yet. It's not a PPP. I think maybe it should be balanced in the budget of public part. Which risk, if you don't have enough data, which risk the sector should take in order to be considered like a PPP, not another project, and not another activity like a budget, public budget.
Okay. So
Thank you.
As we understand, your question is that in a railway PPP, when we're talking about converting or evolution or change over to the hydrogen, green hydrogen, if the data is less because the historical usage of that is less or not there, how would you design a PPP project? Is that your question?
Yes, because if you don't have enough data, which risk did you choose to have to take as a private part?
Okay.
Which risk, the
strategy?
demand risk, or even they don't have enough of data? How did they, and it looks like also the feasibility part about how you will use hydrogen, the early stage, how do you choose to take this part of risk?
Okay. So
in order to not be defined like a public project, but not still stay like a public-private partnership.
Okay.
And
Fine.
Thank you so much.
So the question, it appears, is that when we are talking about the green hydrogen, the data or the historic usage or availability of the existing experience is limited or not there. In such a scenario, what strategy to be used and how to develop the project?
Now, may I, Mr. Mishra, could you throw light on that?
It's true that their data is not available to that extent, and at the same time we have to make a progress. So there will be a pockets of the PPP will get developed, a customized area. It will not be an overall line as what my colleague was saying about that. For example, a particular line for a coal-based transporting coal to a particular line, and that particular line to be made PPP. Yes, then it is possible to be converted. That data is possible to be derived. But in general, it will be difficult. But for a specific cases, yes, one can design a PPP project with properly allocating properly risk.
You would like to say anything more on that, Philip?
I think this gets into the whole risk allocation, and if I were a private partner already, or the private entity in a partnership that has a railway, and I'm working with the government or the my public partner. Today in North America, and I'm pretty sure this would be around the world, 24 cents of every every revenue dollar goes to maintenance of the infrastructure. All right, that's going to go up. And we don't know how much it's going to go up. So if I have an existing PPP, and I think we talked about this, David Baxter mentioned this when we were going into COVID, that the partners have to sit and realize this and recognize this. As the data starts coming in and the data starts changing, the public entity has to work with the private entity, or the private partner is just he's gonna walk away from the operation. The same thing is going forward. There's going to be unknowns as climate change brings the unknowns in. Who knows? It may not be hydrogen. You mentioned how solar 10 years ago was so expensive. 5 years ago, I remember my colleague sitting to my right talking to me about green hydrogen in Oman, and I said, "What?" I had no idea what it was. So now we're getting to that point. There's biodiesel that's being developed. It's carbon neutral. I thought biodiesel was made from corn. Biodiesel is where chemists take carbon out of the air and mix it with existing hydrocarbons of some type, and the carbon emission it's neutral. What they put back into the air is what they took out of the air. Maybe that's what we go to, because it will work with an existing diesel locomotive. It may be hydrogen internal combustion engines. We're not sure. Is it fuel cell technology? All of this is changing so fast from day to day. We don't have the data going back 10, 15 years to say, oh, this is what my risk is going to be 5 years from now or 3 years from now. So all of this it's got to be set there. Both parties have to address it. I think going forward, if I were sitting on the public side or the private side, I would make sure there were clauses in the agreements to cover this off. But if I have an existing concession, I would be concerned about this as bridges start flooding away on me every year or every 2 years. Something that you had a bridge, they were good for 99 years until they rotted. Now they're floating away. So this is what we're addressing now.
One more thing I will just add to, because say I run a PPP. I mean, now today I'm running with a diesel engine. Maybe after 10 years with the cycle of it's a periodical overhaul, I may decide to go for a hydrogen-based engine. In any case, for example, right now I'm exploring the option of electrification, because these options, they keep on working for the PPP. As this technology for the hydrogen-powered locomotive settles down, I feel in another 5 years' time kind of a thing, we'll be much better off to take a call on that. And then the people, even the existing PPP projects like ours, may think about introducing a hydrogen-powered locomotives. I mean, this is possible.
Any more questions? It seems the fatigue of the day is visible, or the reception is appearing near. Anyway, it was been a wonderful session, and I thank the panelists, the distinguished panelists, to have given their insight into some of the most interesting aspects of the evolution or changeover to the green hydrogen and the climate risks. While we not only discussed the challenges of changeover, we also discussed the AI and IoT aspects of it, the specific of climate impacts, and how we need to look at the mitigation measures and work it and integrate it into our project planning and project implementations. So if there are no more questions, we would like to thank all our distinguished panelists, and more importantly, I thank you all to have continued with same vigor and vitality as you were attending throughout the day, and even we had some good questions, and you are all appearing bright, ready for the next event, that is the reception. And thank you very much, and wish you have a nice evening. Thank you.